Good evening, everybody. I'm Noreen McClendon. I'm your facilitator and your host, and this is Free to Heal, where we come together every week and we discuss and try to heal from the wounds that were inflicted upon all of us through mass incarceration. We also have a heavy focus on us being better people at the end of the day. So we get together every week and we try to heal our wounds and everything. And today, I was just telling the group in check-in that I'm very sad. I'm sad today because today was the day that the jury found Carmelo Anthony guilty of murder. And what's really bad about it is the judge even gave them, and I think this was for the sake of making sure he was convicted, the option for manslaughter, but they still chose to convict him of murder. But for me, the sad thing is that still in America today, you're not treated the same in the criminal justice system if you look like me. And the statistics are there. You're 7 times more likely to be wrongfully convicted if you're Black. The sentence for the exact same crime, Black people traditionally get 20% more time. And so when we just, last week or the week before, where a man was acquitted of murder, despite the fact that he chased a young man down, Mr. Chow, 139 yards, that is longer than a football field, shot him in the back, and it was considered self-defense. So for me, the sadness that it gave me is that there's no value in our lives in America. We're good for a few things for them. That's entertainment, exploitation,
And Black jobs. And Black jobs.
That's exploitation, right? The Black jobs that Trump was talking about, we're going to put us back on the factory lines and that kind of stuff. The fact that's even a thing just really, it makes me sad. It makes me sad because in 2026, we should not be having to have this conversation. There's no way you can justify another young man carrying a weapon across state lines to a protest, killing someone and being acquitted. And this young man having something in his bag, and when he's jumped by more than one person and uses it, that somehow that was not self-defense. There is no way to fix the disparity in the judgment. There's no way to in the verdict. And it's so constant in America. It's so constant. And yes, there are exceptions. Yes, there are people that don't get treated fairly, but other than Black people. But historically, in general, it's largely Black people. And it just disturbs me so much. And it really makes me sad. And I just wanted to say, it was so bad I couldn't even think of another topic. I couldn't even come here faking with y'all and act like I'm not offended by that, or I'm not upset about it, or that my feelings are not hurt about it. This is a straight A student athlete who is now going to go to prison. Even if he gets out on appeal, his life has changed forever. Nobody ever comes out of prison the same way they went in. Nobody. It is an experience that changes people, bottom line. And the fact that there have been times where judges have said, oh, we're not going to sentence this young man because he has a future. We're not going to sentence him to long time. It's happened more than once with white boys. That's just what they do. And it just is disturbing to me that this is our reality. You cannot act like it's not that. No matter what you said, you cannot act like that's not what it is. It's too much evidence to the contrary. So that's what's on my mind right now. That's why I feel hurt. That's why I'm upset today. Because when they get mad at us for saying Black Lives Matter. And they want to say, oh, all lives matter. Yeah, they do, but just not at the same level. It's just not at the same level. And we, again, exploitation, entertainment, all of those things, our bodies are good for that. They don't have a problem with that. But when it comes to our humanity and how we would feel in the moment or whatever, we don't have the luxury in America to have feelings or to be afraid or any of those things. We get the book thrown at us. And so I'm putting that out there. I would love to hear comments. Anybody, please chime in. Anybody who wants to say anything, because that's just where I am. Go ahead, Pipe.
I get tired of hearing about it. Why should it matter what race you are?
It doesn't
It
matter.
does in America. That's just the truth. That's the
That's
point
the
you should
truth.
understand. It's the truth.
That's the history of the country.
Yeah.
You cannot like it, but that's the truth.
The truth
Again,
is
the
the truth.
statistics show
We don't like it.
we don't like it either. The statistics show that we get 7% more likely to be wrongfully convicted and get 20% more time than other people. That's not something we made up. The fact that it is that way is a problem. And again, I've said to you before, you don't want to hear it, and you may not like to hear it, but it's true.
The truth is the truth. Period.
It's the truth. You got sentenced, but you had a long track record of crimes. You were a repeat offender criminal when you got convicted like that.
That was the reason.
But
And so they looked at you differently because you had all that track record. Not because and listen, and you're one out of few. Right? But again, a man that may have been Black that had the same crime thing that you did might have got the death sentence. See, so that's the situation. Yes.
And I think there's the old saying that you can have your own opinions, but you can't have your own facts.
Correct.
And so it's really important to understand that. And so, Pike, I agree with you in terms of you may get tired of hearing it, but we get tired of feeling it. We get tired of seeing it, and we get tired of experiencing it. And when you say that, I think I understand what you're intending to say, which is that's not how you think. And so because of that, it feels like it's not real because that's not how you feel. But unfortunately, there's a large percentage of population that controls society and that have an impact on a lot of experiences that other people have that don't feel the same way that you do. And so I think we don't like to feel it. We don't, because the last thing anybody wants to do is to complain. And so the fact that if we say it, then that must mean that it's a real experience that you feel. And so just in the same way people like you or people who are allies of all people don't like to hear, may get agitated with hearing it consistently, we 10 times get tired of saying it and get 10 times get tired of feeling it. And it breaks our heart that we have to express it. Yeah.
Not even just feeling it, but living it.
That's how I live it.
Yep.
Living
Yep.
it.
I live it.
Yeah, I mean,
In
a real example, my case, I was tried in Ohio and I got maxed out on the same charges that a guy who did the exact same thing and was charged with the exact same thing just got probation with. And so, and even my white public defender said, I've never seen that. You were treated differently. And he admitted it. And so I think it's not just me, but I think what people in the room are trying to express to you is you may feel like that's not the case. And we wish it wasn't the case. But like I said, you can have your own opinions, but you can't have your own facts. And the facts are the facts.
I've never had a judge that didn't give me the max for any crime that I committed. I just never have.
Yeah, but I think, but Noreen mentioned to you, it was that you had a long history of criminality, right? For some people, it could be their first time offense. The gentleman that Noreen was referencing was an outstanding citizen, never had a violent past, never had any type of violence, juvenile experience, any of that stuff. It was a unique situation that happened that in all reality, we've seen worse get treated better. And so I think that's where the disconnect. I think you have a skewed experience because you've been on the opposite side of the white experience. You because you've had a long track record. And so in some cases you may have been treated fairly. Some cases it sounded a little bit, I know about your story, you may have been treated unfairly when you were going back to the parole hearings or to get out. But at the end of the day, other people have real experiences. And I think that's where the group says, hey, just the way you voiced your opinion or how you feel and your experiences, is what you've experienced is real. And so the same thing for the people in the room, their experiences are real too, whether we want to hear it or not, whether we like to hear it or not. It's all real and it's all valid. We just may not have the perspective of the other individual.
I told the truth every time I went to the board. I never changed my story because what happened, and maybe I shouldn't have killed them, but I wasn't going to let them kill me.
We've talked here multiple times about the fact that the reason that they didn't let you out is they needed your body for plumbing. They used your body for labor until you went into parole in a wheelchair, right? Unable to plumb anymore. That is when they decided to let you go. Had you still been healthy enough to continue to do plumbing, you'd still be in prison, Pike.
Sitting there helping them.
Helping them. And that's the truth, right?
Yeah,
So now,
but if I didn't do it, it was the only thing that I knew how to do. And I was good at it.
absolutely. But that didn't mean that you deserved to spend as many years in prison as you did under the circumstances. The two people threatened you. They had knives. You had a gun, right?
And I
And
thought
you warned them and whatever, right? So
I did.
So those people died, right? I call that self-defense. If you 2 against 1 or whatever, right? But at the end of the day, it wasn't fair that they kept you in prison for all those years just so that they could use you to do plumbing, right? You had what was your original sentence? Something to what?
15 alive,
15,
36.
36, okay? You did more than double.
Yeah, but you tripled your time there.
Okay? But that was so they could use your body. You again are an exception to how they treat white people in the prison system
I
across
think
this
that was
country.
institutional life.
You were, because you started doing time at 11 years old.
I
You
know.
spent more time incarcerated than you did on the street. So yes, you clearly have been institutionalized, but the bottom line is that again, in this instance, this is another example because we just had last week this man, Mr. Chow, acquitted of murder when they hunted him down. They followed him. They chased him down. Him and his son chased him down and shot him in the back. And America, the court system said he wasn't guilty of anything. But this young man, who even in testimony, it came out that they hit him first. There's discrepancy about how many people and all that, right? Different things, but
His twin brother didn't testify.
and why didn't his twin brother testify, right? His twin brother was right next to him. There's a reason he didn't testify. That is not by chance that young man didn't testify, especially when they have video of him saying different things, especially somebody showed various videos of this young man, of the twin, changing his story as another adult started to tell a story. And then the dialogue began to change from the young man. I'm curious why he had the attorney he had, because it didn't seem to me, I didn't watch the trial, but it doesn't seem like his attorney did a whole heck of a lot, because
He probably had a public defense.
and he shouldn't have. I don't think he should have, because his family did get some money. I don't know what the story is with all that,
I
but
don't know, but I think I wasn't in the trial. For me, I believe the defense attorney, he wasn't public, but I believe the defense attorney rested the case based on his feeling that the prosecution did not prove their case. But we also find out now that the judge and the young man who died, his father and mother and someone else were all at a party together. Like you said, we're going to have to wait on appeal, but that doesn't become becomes a silver lining for me to hang on to the fact that hopefully this gets reversed. But in the process of that, what's going to happen to Carmelo as he goes in? Because as you stated, he's going to go in and not going to come out the same way. And the damage that's going to happen when there's someone who's there who shouldn't be there. Yesterday, for an example, passing through social media, a video of Corey Wise came up. And every time I see him, I cry. Because when I was watching the Central Park 5, clutching my own daughter, the first thing I said was, there's no way in hell these boys committed this brutal rape. I could look at one of these boys and tell you that he was a virgin, right? But they were the complexion for what they wanted. They railroaded them and they got a confession. And how many times have we seen these confessions that have been coerced, especially in New York City, but all across the country, that have led to cases being overturned, convictions being overturned, not a year later, not 10 years
30.
later, 25 years later, 35
40.
years later, the cost that it's costing the person, the taxpayers. Look at what New York had to pay the Central Park 5. So for me, I agree. What damage is going to be done with him going through this process? Because he doesn't deserve it. Yes, a young man lost his life, but where is the responsibility that he plays in that part of what happened? Get out of my tent. First of all, it don't even belong to you. Taking something overboard. So I think there's a lot of pain on both sides,
Absolutely.
but I definitely don't think sending Carmelo to prison is going to solve what actually happened. It's just giving him the blame.
Going to court, your chances of being found guilty is like 98%. And mostly if you got a state attorney, a public defender, you can kiss your ass goodbye. I've only seen one, as far as I know, that really fought for me. And
The issue becomes is that the system is what the system is.
Yeah, but it's just a game.
Yeah, it's a system. And Diane, we talked about this earlier, is the fact that to me, they're all on the same team.
They are.
The public defenders and the prosecutors, they're all part of the same system. And it's really disheartening because there are real lives on the other end of these decisions.
they shouldn't have public defenders.
And they would just send people, they would just send them to prison with nothing, which is what they
No,
want.
I'm saying the ones, that's all they do. You know what I'm saying?
They had to develop that though, right? The public policy,
Yeah, I
they
think
had to develop it because what they did is they were having people with no representation. What were you going to say, V?
Yeah, the one thing that I would just say is that you mentioned just a second ago, the entire system is broken. At the end of the day, like what you were referencing is, at least at a federal level, the conviction rate is at a 98%. But they know, but baked in that is when you get charged, in many cases, they'll overcharge you, understanding that the risk of you taking it to trial is so great that if you lose, you'll be staring at 20, 30, 40 years, or they're going to max you out. So in many cases, even in my situation, I planned on fighting it, but at the end of the day, I ran the risk of what they call trial tax, right? And if you lose, I end up taking a plea deal because I just thought to myself, I can handle the plea deal where they offered. And so I wasn't even willing to take it to trial because I would have got 20 years. And so in many cases, I think they know the system of if they overcharge you, they'll scare you to death to take a plea deal. And if you accept that plea deal, it counts as a conviction because you're admitting guilt. Even if you don't feel like you're guilty, you're admitting it. And so they
And
know that it's a
97,
vicious
like you
game.
say, that 97% at the Fed level, that's what happened. And the vast majority, even at the state level, are plea deals. Why? Because like you say, they overcharge and they set you up and they scare the heck out of you, whatever. And a lot of times, particularly, you don't want to take the chance on being convicted that way because you know that then they will ask for the maximum sentences. If people, in fact, took things to trial, I've seen studies done it.
It would overwhelm.
It would overwhelm the system, right? If people
And the system would have to
executing their constitutional rights,
That's why they have so many canceled court dates. They try to stress you out that way
yeah.
without saying it verbally.
So if they know that if people actually exercise their rights to a speedy trial and everything, would be overwhelmed. And so a lot of times they take plea deals for that. Go ahead, Miss Cheryl.
Oh, yeah. So we're on that chapter in Woj right now in the new Jim Crow, talking about that. And that's exactly what you guys are saying, that if they did go to trial, it would overwhelm the entire court system. But I wanted to say, when Pike said, no, there are public defenders that will try to help you. And we had 10 people in our conspiracy. The public defender got one of the black guys off. And what I wanted to say about that for real is that, hold on, I'm trying to go in here. I'm sorry. I wrote on that in local. But what I wanted to say is that there were 10 of us on trial. I kept asking my son's father, who is this other Morris guy? Who's the other Morris guy? And we didn't know. It was a white guy. And I thought it was an attorney, but it was a white guy. So they had a chart and it had, this is Monday when you on, and they go through all the stuff and they take everything if they're going to take stuff away. And I think I said that to you guys before. They took him away from us because the man said if they get found guilty, they'll find him guilty too because he's with them. And they took his case and made it separate. But the thing is, I said they intended to do that anyway because they brought a chart in that said my son's father cocaine conspiracy. It had pictures of all of us, but the white guy's name was never on there because when the judge told them to change something, they had to put a paper over it to cover it. And I said, that's why I knew they weren't going to have that white guy because they never had his picture there because they would have had to cover it up Monday because that would have been the thing. We're not going to try him with them. But it's just really something because they do separate you. And I always tell people, I would not complain against the federal government, but they charge you. Those, the white girl, she had 38. They gave me 38 and gave her 31 months, which is a month for each kilo, less month for each kilo, and gave me the 20 years and then gave me the 22 years and 10 months. So they're unfair all the way down. Very fair. And thank you for my tardiness in talking.
One of the things I want to say is something that I think you said it last week. We briefly discussed it, Tony, and that was the system isn't broken.
No, and I was going to say, if I didn't want to interrupt, it's working exactly how it was designed to work.
Exactly the way it was intended to work. This is not something that is broken. This is something that was designed to do exactly what it's doing. It was broken. Yeah, it is to, and that's the thing that scares me about this young man is that he's going into a system. My prayers have been that they not be allowed to destroy his soul, that they don't get to take his soul, his sense of who he is, that he be protected from harm while he's there and that the judge find it in his heart to do the right thing by this young man. I doubt it. I don't have any confidence because that is not how the system is designed. The system is literally designed to do what it's doing.
Is he going to federal jail or
Texas? Yeah. Yeah, he's fucked. He's fucked. Because, you know what I'm saying? Because what they also will do to a young man like him is they'll put him in population that they know would hurt him. They're not above that either.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying? Yes.
in Texas, they'll send them to me.
Yeah.
They'll send them to something on the order of, what's that place up north? That's right below.
Valley State, what is that?
Pelican Bay.
Oh,
yeah.
Because of his charge, because of a murder charge,
Exactly,
because he did
exactly.
get manslaughter. But can I just read this really quick?
Go right ahead.
This is today. 6 lawsuits that challenge California's racial sentencing disparities. Judges throughout California are violating the state's Racial Justice Act by sentencing minority defendants to much longer terms than whites for different crimes. And the 6 lawsuits are in 6 different counties in California. 6 different counties. And that's only what we know of. And it continues to happen.
And the thing is that people say, oh, so what you're saying is all these people got together and decided, no, what's understood doesn't need to be spoken.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This has been designed from the beginning to be this way. Once slavery ended, because during slavery, prior to that, right after slavery ended, then you got films like Birth of a Nation, where before that, Black men were the jolly, happy servant, that kind of, and willing to be servants, this and that. But the minute that the 13th Amendment was passed, saying that the only way you could be enslaved was as punishment for a crime, everything Black people did became a crime. And they instituted laws over and over again, constantly, to criminalize. A prime example is how initially, for years, the penalty for having crack cocaine versus powder cocaine. Crack cocaine, for the same amount, you got 100 times the sentence. 100 times the mandatory minimum for crack. Why? Because they knew it was in the Black community. How did they know? They put it there. They brought it here. They put it in our community. When Barack Obama was in office, he had it reduced to 10 times. But still,
That's still
the disparity is still the disparity. Go ahead, Ms. Cheryl.
When I was in Danbury, Connecticut, when OxyContin hit the court system, the people that came in for the OxyContin were attorneys, doctors, and upper echelon white people. I kid you not, that within 4 months, they put a memo on the board and those people went home. Because they changed it so that it wouldn't affect them.
Not to mention the Sackler family got to move like $10 billion out of the company. And they intentionally got people addicted to opioid and made billions of dollars. But they got away with it. Miss Monica, go ahead.
Yeah, Baltimore, the state of Maryland was one of the cities and the states that successfully sued pharmaceutical company. I think it might have been them. I think they split. Baltimore got about almost 700 million. And I think it was a few other cities and states that were successfully sued pharmaceutical company. And I think they have another lawsuit that's pending now. And I think, and I apologize for being late, but I'm certainly happy to be here. But I think one of the things that we could pay attention to more is elections on the lower level and the judges. I think the state has 10 federal jurisdictions, you know what I mean, in terms of appeals courts or something like that. But I think we just need to pay more attention to that. And I think, man, what we have gotten ourselves into is shit, we get set back hundreds of years because the stuff that they throwing at us is really from before Reconstruction. So before 1865. So if they can will it, take things back, for instance, they had a vagabond law, and the vagabond law says that if you can't tell me where you live at, then we can put you like the 13th. And Sister Michelle Allen said, we can put you back into convict leasing. So they kind of doing it now. They trying to make homelessness a crime. And I know that they trying to start in California, where they are actually trying to make homelessness a crime. And then they had this one guy, I think in Louisiana, some young black guy just got a life sentence. But the judge says, do you think giving this gentleman a life sentence would, he said, be beneficial or helpful? And he says
State.
it would be helpful because we need bodies. We need people for
Bodies.
labor. We need people. I couldn't believe he actually said that. But it's unfolding right before our eyes. But the last thing I'm going to say is when the system is working the way that it's supposed to, opportunities come for us to create our own system. Like Rods and those folks started participatory defense. If you can start a participatory defense type of network that would be lawyers and volunteer lawyers, then you can say, I don't want to use this public defender. I want to use this lawyer, because those people can always do pro bono. So imagine if you had a whole nationwide system of movement lawyers that really get it, that's willing to do some pro bono work, because people got to make a living. But it is a chance, it's scary to have a system break that at least you did have due process. Once that's gone, it's gone. And at least you were considered a citizen. Now that they are considering citizenship, once that 14th Amendment is gone, it's not for immigrants, it's really for the former slave. So once the 14th Amendment is gone, now because you're not a citizen, you can't even vote. So if things go according to the plan, boy, we're in bad shape. Y'all better start growing some damn potatoes and some oranges so you can barter, so our ass don't starve. Get yourself a cotton field.
But let me tell you what's a cold game, though,
Cotton would
Monica.
be good to have right now.
Let me tell you what's a cold game, though. The administration has killed farmers. They've killed the farming. So in the last year, bankruptcies among farmers has increased 40. That means almost half the farmers are filing bankruptcy. That's our food. That is our food. You better get you some aquaponics or something in your house so you might have something to eat, because there's not going to be any food. But again, keep this in mind. Understand this. This is not, again, by chance. This is by design. Part of the thing of having all of the homeless people was to get people accustomed to living on the street and to surviving on the street. They could have fixed homelessness years ago.
Before they built all those high rises in downtown.
Before they built the empty high rises that are in downtown.
Before they built the Staples Center.
Before they built
Before they built the Staples Center.
I hear you. I'll come to you in a second. So at the end of the day, the reality is that, again, it is working as it is playing. Like you say, Monica, when they're talking right now about trying to kill birthright citizenship, trust me, it is not going to be just immigrants. That's not the way they work. They're always playing the long game. They're playing 10, 15, 20, 30 years from now. The things that are being put in place now. But they're definitely, now keep in mind that Ronald Reagan was the person who emptied out all of the mental health facilities and stuff like that. He's the one who emptied that created a mass homelessness population. He did that.
You know why?
Wait 1 second. And now they want to have those institutions again, but they really want to put them in prisons.
Yep.
And so why?
That's why, because it's cheaper to put them in prison than it is a hospital.
And I
The
think
hell of a lot cheaper.
at least you know what it is. I think it's the value system. The value system is that those people don't have any value. So we shouldn't spend our tax dollars on caring for them, right?
Help them get better.
To help them get better, anything, just for them to subsist, just for them to exist. We shouldn't spend our money on that, but we can spend money on war. We can. It always amazes me when they talk about how much money we don't have, but the minute they decided to go to war, they found billions, $1 billion a day. Where was that?
Oh, right.
How much money just started falling on the sky? I said, what? Okay, Big Mama, you had that shit under the mattress. You ain't told us what happened. How did we get $1 billion a day to support the war, to fund the war? Keeping in mind that I know the administration is also They speak with a forked tongue when it comes to our veterans. They treat our veterans
Horrible.
horrible. Horrible. If you're injured and stuff, they're trying to reduce benefits. If medication helps you, sending National Guard in to cities with 29-day orders, because if they go 30, now they're entitled to full benefits. They're trying to pass a law right now so that they can't double up, because National Guard doesn't understand you're only supposed to do this deployment, you go home and you go back to your regular life.
To go home.
They were back to back in them on 29-day orders.
Hey, your friend coming.
29-day orders, back to back in them. That's so that they didn't have to pay them their full benefits. Why? Why? Again, it's a values calculation. It is about what do you value. If you show me where you spend your money, and I will show you your values. I will show you what's important to you. B, did you want to say something that you didn't get a chance to say yet?
I think the question I have for you is that maybe this is particularly poignant since kind of the emotions that you came into the night with. Maybe I'll toss out a question to you or maybe to anybody in the group. In the times that we feel sad or disappointed or impacted by the PTSD that we kind of all feel, for the sake of the viewer, are there any tips that you can recommend that help you get back to center or help you find a little bit of happiness even when there's chaos? Are there any things that you can recommend to this group or to the people that are watching when you're feeling these emotions?
Certainly, one of the things, but let me say this. In terms of what a person can do when they're feeling upset and pain like I feel today behind the circumstance, the first thing is acknowledge it. Don't try to hide it like it doesn't exist.
Yeah, stand on it and speak on it.
Another thing, we talked about this, and we talked about this. So one of the first things is you cannot fix what you don't acknowledge. If I could not come here today feeling the emotional pain that I felt and sit here and just try to talk to y'all like everything is okay with me.
Don't speak on that.
My stomach hurt. Felt physical pain.
Because your feelings do matter. It doesn't matter if you know the person or not. Your feelings matter.
Yes, especially when you know the injustice, and I know what they're sending, where they're sending him to. I know the system that they're putting this young man into, and so I know what it's intended to do. I know the harm it's intended to cause. And it's interesting because the young man that they had in Rikers for 3 years that was innocent, that wound up committing suicide based on that anniversary was this week. It was in the last week. So they put him in a situation that they knew would destroy him. And even though eventually he was exonerated or whatever, it didn't matter because the damage was already done. Yeah. And so what I say is that, first of all, you have to acknowledge your feelings. Start with that. Start admitting to yourself that you feel what you feel. If you need to cry, I shed my tears at home. I did. Because I cannot hold and bottle that up. That's again, but talking to somebody, one of the reasons it's so important that you actually talk about it is because the creator spoke it and then the action followed. So there's a reason why you need, in order to get those things out, you got to be able to talk about it. You got to be able to admit there's a situation. Then the other thing is that I would suggest for people trying to figure out what to do with it. If you cannot change it, know that it's not your fight. Why do I say that? Because what we don't want is people going out in the street and doing stuff. Please understand, there are people in this country that have been trying to set off a race war for years, like ever since Trump's been in office. So we cannot give them, they're looking for a reason to harm us. That is something that we cannot do. So I say, think before you respond. We talk about that all the time, right? Effective communication and those kinds of things. We always talk about one of the ways to do that is to think before you respond. Listen to the end, but in this instance, if it's something that's coming from within you, there are feelings that you have. I say, again, don't ignore them, but also ask yourself a series of questions, particularly around what is your ability to actually affect the change that you would like to see. And again, if you don't have any ability like me, I sit here in California, that young man is in Texas. There's absolutely nothing I can do to help them right now, unless somebody comes up with some system or something. I don't know, but I cannot physically change it. So what I can't do is let my hurt and my pain and my anger about the situation cause me to go do something that's going to produce a problem for me, because I can't fix it. So when I can't fix it, it's not my fight. So I say, acknowledge yourself, acknowledge your pain, acknowledge your feelings, think about what you can do. And then for those people, whatever your universal power source is, pray.
What are
Because
what are
that's
some? I was about to say, what is some like physical, like if everybody ain't like a thinker, what is some physical coping skills we can do? Far as like something physical, if, I don't know, like other than squeezing the ball or like, see what I'm saying?
exercise. Exercise is good. Any kind of exercise. Any kind of exercise is good. Any kind. Walking, look, do them damn burpees, everybody hate. That is good. Do the damn burpees, hey, that's what I say. What you say, Jay?
A lot of times I draw. I can't even draw.
Okay.
But what I do is I find something that you thought about doing, being creative, that you can create, that makes you feel better.
That's a good idea. Because I'll tell you, when you say that, we had the paint thing here. That was fun. It was fun. I bought these canvases and we painted to heal. And we had conversation, everything, painting, drawing, any of those kinds of things physically. But exercise really relieves a lot of stress, no matter what the
Noreen.
circumstances are.
But I just,
The
I
other,
just
the one,
go ahead, brother.
oh, I was
You
just
go
gonna
ahead.
say maybe something else that I try to do personally is find a book that I'm really interested in and continue to develop my mind and stretch my mind into in terms of how I think. Sometimes it can be a distraction. I did that when I was locked up. So that's one thing that I carry with me, but continue to grow my mind. So that's something.
Yeah, that's a good thing. I just won a court case. The white guy is running around agitating these folks,
Chud,
calling you niggas, and
Chud the builder.
yeah, he agitated somebody to call him a nigga. And I had to go back to Tennessee to go to court.
Oh, wow.
And I just beat the case. People came to court for me. And the best thing about it was I didn't become the aggressor. So a lot of times we, as individuals, we concentrate on being the aggressor because, oh, I got to protect myself. Ain't nobody going to make me no punk. But it's not about that. He could have kept on calling me niggas in line, but he had one too many niggas in his mouth. And I introduced him to the aisle. Everybody there saw what was going on. So when it came to court, I got exonerated on my case because it was agitation that he was trying to provoke me so he can do like that boy shoot you and be justified. So a lot of things that we think that we are right, a lot of times we're not right. We have to really think it through and see the consequences of it.
Well, we're right. It's just that justice doesn't bend in our favor. There's a difference, right? So oftentimes, like when I'm dealing with people and I'm talking about relationships, particularly between men and women, and we talk about relationships, the one thing I say, you want to be right or you want to be in a relationship? What is your focus? Because listen, a relationship is a constant series of renegotiations. We constantly got to give and take. It's give and take on both sides. Whatever you like, don't like, whatever, right? But sometimes you can be right and lose the war.
Yep.
And that makes a difference. So I say to everybody, again, think to yourself whether or not you have the ability to affect the change on it. If you don't have any tools, if anything you're about to do is not going to change the situation, don't do it.
Thank you, Miss Cheryl.
Huh?
Thank you, Miss Cheryl.
Oh yeah, because Miss Cheryl had to straighten you out.
She did.
Yeah, because Diane used to think that just because she was mad to just about everything. justified all kinds of felonies. She thought it justified all kinds of felonies, y'all. And it took her days before it occurred to her, wait a minute, I'm not right about that. Wait, because she kept saying, did she not hear me? I said I was pissed off.
That's what I kept saying. I was mad.
Jail for the same crime, Miss Dottie.
I didn't know.
But, okay.
I know now.
To that point, I do think to that point, we all do have some control. And the one thing I would just say is even this group, when we communicate and talk to each other, we can share with the next generation. I try to explain to my daughters, at the end of the day, you're Black. They're mixed, but at the end of the day, you're Black. And so understand what your rules of engagement are. And in some cases, you don't have to remove yourself from certain environments. You don't need to be in certain places because the system, to your point, is that if it's designed against you, then you have to remove yourself from situations to never allow it to escalate. Because if they're trying to trigger you, if they're trying to push you in a certain direction, just like for our Black sons, I remember my parents sitting me down and talking about driving and how my experience is going to be different. And so make sure your tags are always on point. Make sure your lights are always on point because there are different rules of engagement. So I do think even in a world where we can't control the output, we can control the input and how we navigate the environment that we're in. So we're not completely helpless.
We have to. One of the things that makes me sad is that there's the fact that you have to say to your daughters that they are Black because they're also white, right? But the universe,
Society is not
going to give them credit for that. They're not going to give them a leeway because they're half white. They go into court, they going into court as Black girls. They're not going to get a pass for that.
And they're not going to get a pass.
They're not. That's the tragedy. It's like people talk about Barack Obama. They never talk about the fact that he's half white. Not only that, by white people, right? But they don't they don't talk about that. They only talk about the fact that he's Black. You know, Monica, your hand is up, sweetie.
Oh yeah, I was just going to say the only thing that we have control over is ourselves. That's the only thing that we have control over is ourselves. And the second thing is that we're kind of moving into a space where people of color were 60, 70 years ago. You wouldn't have to worry about 60 or 70 years ago. You wouldn't have to worry about how to negotiate in certain situations because there was segregation and you weren't in that. When a white officer showed up in your community, everybody looked like, what's he doing? He was he stuck out like a sore thumb. And now because of integration, now it's nothing to see an officer pull somebody over, shoot him or whatever. But in terms of trying to negotiate the spaces of how do we deal with being in these spaces, I just think you got two things going on. You have what happened in the past where you didn't really have to deal with that because you went and shopped at a Black-owned store. You didn't have to worry about nobody following you around. Years ago, you went to a restaurant, a soul food restaurant or a restaurant, and it was a Black person there, so you didn't have to worry about them not wanting to serve you or getting poor service or them have you sit there for an hour while they serve everybody else around you. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yes.
the word Sankofa means to go back and retrieve something. So I really think that all of the topics are always correlated and we always got to look at history, even when it comes to our behavior. We can look back at our history and see what triggered us to do certain things. We can look back and see the types of relationships that we were involved in so that we can learn how to have a better relationship or whatever. But the past is always, it's prayer time. Sorry about that. Let me, here we go. Sorry about that, guys. But I really do think that this is just the time for us to really look at our past and look at the past of the country and look at everything. And I think the past has a lot to do with how we move forward with our relationships, with ourselves, with our families, with our daughters, with everything. I think the past has a lot to do with our future. That's it.
And it's part of why, in particular, the current administration is trying to erase some history. Why they want to erase it? Because they don't want it to be part of the discussion. There's a big from certain people in the country, there's a push to say slavery happened all that long time ago and it didn't have any effect. But the reality is that the effects of it continue even today. We can see it in so many ways. It is very tragic. But what I would like to say is I thank you guys for bearing with me today, because my stomach was hurt. My heart is hurt. I'm afraid for the young man. I don't think justice was served. I think it just sends a terrible message that, again, just less than a week ago, a man was acquitted of murdering a 14-year-old child.
An Asian man.
Yes, an Asian man was acquitted of murdering a 14-year-old Black kid, shooting him, chasing him, shooting him in the back, and was found not guilty of killing him. And this young man, who was actually assaulted, is found guilty of murder for defending himself. The two are not the same. There's no justice in it. You got, in our history, when you talk about what happened in the past, Monica, that's been our history in America. We don't receive justice. And then when we say that, it's a problem. And so I'm thankful that you guys allowed us to have this conversation. I want to open it up for those online, first of all, to give us your final comments, final thoughts, anything that you guys want to say. Carlos, what about you? Go ahead, anybody, please just unmute and go ahead so we can get through checkouts.
Hello, can you hear me?
Chester. Hi, Chester.
Hey, hi, I came in late, but I feel like you're saying it's very disparaging, and we got to try to get rid of the people that's higher up, the people that say control. It's like with our parole. They always want to have the last word, and they always want to be right. A lot of that stuff is arbitrary, and we just have to try to find a way to get these people removed, because like you're saying, it's always going to be uneven. It's always going to be unfair. Always. What can we do? We're a strong race, but it's just that we got so much against us. And it's just hard sometimes. It's hard. That's why
I get
Anyway,
tired,
Hey,
you know,
hey, I think
tired of rising above, and you know what I'm saying? I get tired. I just get
okay.
tired.
Can I mention something?
Go ahead.
The thing I think about is, I think about back in my corporate experience, I think we need to have more representation in the places that make these decisions. And so I think about myself when I was in corporate, I took pride in understanding that I could hire people that look like me, and I could recruit from HBCUs, and I could recruit from different National Black NBA case competitions and other places of diversity. So I think I would love it if one day we had strong pushes from our community to get our youth, our grandkids, our nephews into the legal system, where they also became judges, and they also had to start to have actually influence in some of the decisions, because I think that's where the power really comes. Just like when I find that some of the best people who hire women are women, just like same thing from a diversity standpoint. And so I think the more we have representation in those places, I think the better off we'll be.
Absolutely. And I agree with that wholeheartedly. I will say that there have been lots of efforts like that. And in fact, the current administration made it a negative thing, right? So where they were recruiting from particular places to try to get more diverse folks, he made that illegal.
Yeah, they made DEI illegal, but I'm saying something slightly different, which is the same way we, like Diane's grandson, we have actual people that we touch on a day-to-day basis that we can be accountable for, where I can say to him, yo, if you want to go to school, I'm willing to help you pay for it. I'm willing to help support an individual, and not trying to boil the ocean, but more so actually find people that are capable and that we pour into to say, hey, I believe that you could do something like this, consider it, and let me support you in that cause. Because I would have loved to have gone in the legal field. I just couldn't afford the time that it took to get my JD and MBA and then et cetera, right? I needed to get into the workforce. But if I would have had support along that journey, maybe I would have went down that path. So just a thought.
Understood. Rufus.
I feel like I'm almost at a loss for words, because this is one of those topics and conversations that you almost feel powerless. And And I think in a lot of ways that it got to come from home. We gotta train our kids and teach our kids the realities of life and society and try to steer them away from that because the guy that you was just talking about, what can he? There's no type of training or anything that you could have taught this guy that would have avoided that. He was getting jumped. It's your natural instincts to defend yourself. And it's one thing that I say that people may disagree with me on is that the I don't know how you say the language of the not all of it, but when I was in prison and going through the court systems and reading about a lot of the language of it or the structure of it it's a good structure. It's just that the people that's in charge of implementing these laws are where the corruption is. And like he said, we need representation. And how do you get that in droves that we need it in? So I don't know. I'm just at a loss for words when it comes to this kind of thing. And it's sad. All you can say is it's sad. And I have no solution for it, but to try to start in my home and try to, you know, guide my kids in a way that with the knowledge that I know. But saying that kid right there, he didn't do nothing. Somebody jump on me, my instinct says to do what I need to do, and then now he's part of the system, and there's what it's the people in charge of running the systems is the racism. How do you get rid of? How do you get rid of? I don't know. But I appreciate this conversation and this topic.
Thank you. Thank you. Hey, anything you want to say in closing?
Yeah, I just say, yeah, just more hands-on. Cause like I ain't never had a father that, and I'm just speaking on just me, but just, I don't know, cause we need to, like you said, reach more people. But like I ain't never even had a dad that just showed me how to fill out application. Like just the small stuff. I don't know. I just feel like it need more action than just telling us because we can hear one thing and then we turn on the internet and we see some more to our liking or that we think. I don't know. More hands on.
Yeah, certainly good examples because children tend to do what they see versus what they hear. So you could talk to people all the time. You could say a bunch of stuff, but I definitely agree that having someone there as an example, even if it's just people in the neighborhood, that was one of the things when I grew up in the projects. Thankfully, we still had a lot of two-parent families in the projects when I grew up. So I got to see families and I got to see examples of men that got up and went to work every day and took care of their kids and that kind of stuff. But society, again, it was designed to produce what it is. And one thing we can tell for sure is when they started with welfare, saying that women couldn't have a man in the household to receive assistance after they took all of the jobs out of the community. So once they removed the jobs, and then they said, well, if you need assistance, you can't have a man. That was the destruction. That was the start of the destruction of the family. Claudine, straight up, right? And then once whatever that didn't kill, crack did. Because then they started locking up women for long periods of time. So whatever was left of that structure and the foundation, because even with heroin, mothers didn't abandon their children like that and that kind of thing. There was still some structure in place, but those things have gone. So I appreciate that. In the room, final comments.
Hey, Noreen, just real quick though, I do say, can I mention this? That's one thing I love about this group. I think at the end of the day, it's not always about from a grandkid or a mother to a child. Sometimes it's from a person who's been through the experience that you have. And me finding this group, to me, it put me up on game in terms of, all right, this is what I'm feeling, and these are the emotions. So I do think I refuse to feel helpless. And so it's not in my DNA. I think part of what I see in you and my relationship with you and my relationship with Diane and other people in the room, I think at the end of the day, you guys can have more influence than we realize, even if it's how we feel emotionally that day is magic in that. And me taking the time to talk to A about, yo, this is how you felt. Do you have a resume? Yeah, I got a resume. And then I asked him, and he doesn't have a resume. And it's me taking the time to actually do the resume with him. It's you guys actually taking the time to reach out and make a difference. We have more influence than we realize on real people's lives. And I don't want that to get lost in this unfortunate time.
Appreciate that, James. Anything you want to say on the way out?
I came in kind of late, but I want to say this. Back in the days, we always say, reach one, teach one. You don't ask for help, you don't get it. You know what I mean? And to say what you don't know is a bigger step than playing like you do know. You know what I mean? I've been driving diesels for 2 years, and it was something they told me I couldn't do. At first, I fought my way through, went to Swift. Swift told me, we're going to let your record up when nobody will hire you. Now I'm hired through Andrews in St. George, Utah. And I'm going to tell you, all it did was help me move up because I asked for help. What you do is, you need help, bro? Hey, just ask for help. I may not be there, but we can read together and I can tell you how to fill it out.
Awesome.
Because as an ex-con of 26 and a half years, a lot of things that when we fill out applications, don't come up no more. They do a thing called clearinghouse. I'm letting y'all know this real quick, short. Clearinghouse only goes back 7 years. You got arrested beyond 7 years. They're not talking about date of parole. They're talking about date of arrest, the date you was convicted. 7 years after that, his mind didn't even show up at all. And I didn't work trains. I done worked for resin burger driving as a driver. Now I'm up to my class 8, and I'm going for my hats. Hazmats, I got to fight a little bit more, but because I don't have a crime against the government is the only thing that will stop you from getting ahead.
Understood. Thank you.
I appreciate you expressing how you felt with us today, and we can express to you we have an open topic about it. But I do miss growing up. I miss our neighborhoods. Our older people would say hi to you. We don't have that no more. You can't walk down. Nobody says hi. Nobody asks you how you doing. You better get out. Nobody does none of the looking out for each other no more like they used to. I do miss that.
Yeah. Miss Tony.
I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
I'm emotionally and spiritually exhausted with this state of the world.
Yeah. Understood. Miss Roberta.
Hey, I'm on the same page as Tony. Good night, you guys.
Thank you. I just want to thank everybody for, again, bearing with me and allowing me to express my, he already did. He went first. I want to thank everybody for allowing me to be human and express what I feel. And I appreciate you guys' support. And that's what this is for. That's why we come here. You can check out our videos on YouTube. You can check us out on social media sites. And by all means, we'll be back next week. And I just thank you guys again and see you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Good night. Good night, everybody.
Good night.